Good evening. It's 5:30. And once a month, if we have presenters that come to the meeting, we do start a little bit early so that you can have time to update us on your project, and then at the end take photos so you can have them for your stuff. So we're more than happy to do that. So the first one we have that we already read into perpetuity is the proclamation that we read last year for September as Creek Week. And Mayor Pro Tem Estes is on that committee. So would you like to give us an update on that?
Yeah. Thank you. The Creek Week is all along the Fountain Creek, and it starts on September 24th, run through October 2nd. There are many, many activities involved with that. If you're interested in them, go to the Fountain Creek Watershed District website, and they will have everything that's going on. And there's a ton of stuff going on. Time to go clean up the creek, and I think they're doing some pub runs and some brewery runs, so it's a great time to support our community from Monument clear to Pueblo.
Thank you. I remember the year after the Waldo Canyon floods, it was amazing what they were pulling out of that creek. Refrigerators, stoves, washing machines, I mean, mattresses. Mattresses, yeah. All right, so if you don't want it in the creek, don't put it near the creek. All right, thank you. We had a proclamation that we read into perpetuity last year for World Habitat Day, and we do have someone here from Habitat for Humanity to talk about what they're doing locally to help people with attainable housing. So come on up and state your name for the record. Yep.
Thank you.
There you go.
I think I'd remember from year to year. I'm Chris Lewis, the Executive Director and CEO of Pikes Peak Habitat for Humanity. We have been serving El Paso County since 1986. Over 200 families served to date. 36 homeowners are in Fountain. 34 of those are at Country Living. 2 are on Micah's View with 1 more home to build there, and then 5 more down the street on Race Street, which will be Jacob's Run. We've also done 3 repairs here. Our repair programs are focused on seniors, predominantly seniors with disabilities and accessibility issues, as well as veterans. So if you know of veterans or lower income seniors that need accessibility issues or roofs, I mean, we'll do all kinds of repairs, send them our way. We currently have a joint program with Silver Key. They received a large grant from the Myron Stratton Foundation. When the foundation found out the 2 entities were coming together, they bumped it up from $100,000 to $150,000. So we are doing all the repairs for a number of adults that are served through Silver Key. Most of those repairs are averaging over $10,000. They include roofs for sure, but a lot of accessibility ramps. We have one woman that, I won't tell you her name, but out of shame, she had not told people she had running indoor plumbing. Her bathroom had caved in, and she was too ashamed to let people know. So we got word of it, went in and met with her. She first would not let us in the house. She didn't want us to see the conditions she was living in. $20,000 later and joint work, she now has an accessible bathroom. We've widened her halls. Her doors are safe. She can lock them without having to try to shove a dresser in front of it, which, given she was in her late 80s, was not easy for her to do. She can also get in and out of her home easily. Her only accessibility was when she would use her telephone to call and schedule her Meals on Wheels. That was her only interaction with people. So big things happening there. So if you know seniors or veterans, we're here to help, and there's a large grant on that. On the number of homes that we have built, we are currently not in Fountain. There was a donor who provided us 30 lots out of a 90-lot mixed-income neighborhood up in Colorado Springs. There are time limit restrictions on that for us getting those homes completed, so we are focused on that. The other thing that has slowed us down is our fiscal year that ended June of 2022. The house costs were averaging $240,000. That was up from $150,000. The homes we closed on last month and this week are $300,000 and $330,000. Those are costs. That is not market value. So we are having to monitor our pennies. And thank goodness the second Restore that we opened and its grand opening celebrated a year anniversary, September 1, started generating funds and is helping us to continue building. So many things happening. As you've probably noticed, the market values are crazy. So people are selling their homes, and then they realize no matter how much equity they've pulled out of their house, they now have less to move up. We were starting to see a number of Habitat homes sell out of the affordable housing inventory. It's extremely unusual. Most of our homeowners have not sold their houses, but in the last 2 years, we've seen some leave. So what we're doing to address that going forward, because number one, it's not fair to our donors, it's definitely not fair to the volunteers who've helped build the homes, and we need the affordable housing inventory to stay consistent, if not growing. We have placed a 90-year deed restriction. Now, a lot of people don't like that, but let me explain what that is. We sell to families between 30 and 80% of the area median income. So you figure for a family of four, their the household wages are about $69,000. So they cannot find a home that they could buy within the market. So what we have done is we've placed this, we sell to families at 80%. They can get equity up to 3% per year, which is pretty average in a normal market instead of the 18 to 18.5% that's been happening year over year. They can get that equity when they sell. However, they must sell those homes that Habitat has helped them acquire to families, workforce housing families who make no more than 100% of the area median income. So that's to keep those homes within low middle income families. So we're doing what we can to try to keep the stock going, partnering with other entities, and we're here and rolling and healthy, just going a little slower than we had in the past. Any questions? It's like, hit the road. No? Okay.
Oh, Councilmember Duncan?
Hi.
Okay.
So if because of the slowing market and you're slowing down and you don't have any properties here in Fountain, if we wanted to get involved, what would there be for us to do?
You can definitely go to our website. You can volunteer not only on building homes, but on repairing homes. So you go to pikespeakhabitat.org. There is a volunteer tab. You click on that and you follow it down to decide on which days and which project you'd like to volunteer on. I am always looking for committee members as well as board members. So I will bring you in.
Is that it? Okay. Thank you so much. I am always so excited when we do a ribbon cutting or a house blessing down here. It's a wonderful thing, and I look forward to when you guys come back and finish that one last
you.
house over there. And I was really excited to see the one with a ramp, and, I just know that makes the house a little bit more costly, but I appreciate you looking after the disabled people. And I'm really excited about the program for the seniors and the veterans. I didn't realize you'd partnered with Silver Key on that, so.
Yeah, and I keep
that's
bugging
great.
Christy Martinez every now and then when we see land too. So know that we're still looking down here. She is not being left alone by us.
Okay, Todd will pass that along.
And
Okay.
a quick question is, for the senior and the veterans program, how can we get the information to you so you can look at helping somebody?
You definitely go to our website and you would go under the housing programs. There's one
Okay.
for home ownership and there's one for repairs.
Perfect.
The other thing is
I
if
have
you,
perfect
somebody you
candidate.
know happens to be under Silver Key's services, Silver Key can also provide the information.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
okay.
All right, any other questions, anybody? All right, thank you, Laura. I'm sorry, Chris, I called you Laura. That's the other one. All right, and we have a proclamation also that we read into perpetuity last year for October being recognized as Arts Month, and in honor of that, we have some committee members from the Fountain Up Group that are going to come tell us what they're going to be doing in Fountain as part of our Arts Month in October. Exciting stuff going on.
Council, Mayor. It's a little different being on this side for me, but we're excited. As you know, Kimberly with EDC did the Arts Month last year, and she came to the committee and asked us, did we want to take that on with our street dance that we do? And after reviewing all of that, we realized we're probably already doing something that qualifies us for that with hiring of the band and that kind of stuff. So looking into what else we can do for Arts Month. And last year and years past, she did something every week in front of City Hall for the month of October. So we wanted to find out what else we could add to that. So we did hire a band. There are specifications of what constitutes as art. Last year we had a DJ. That doesn't count. It has to be live band. So we have been able to contract with a live band, Trick USA. They'll be coming and hanging out with us at the street dance. And then we decided, what else can we do during the street dance that would also be towards Arts Month? So we started doing some research, and I found a guy that lives in Grand Junction who carves pumpkins. And I thought, well, maybe we should just see if he'll come carve a pumpkin to, during the event, have something for somebody to watch or, entertain. And he's very booked. So he's not available for the day of the event, but he could come out and hang out with us the entire day on October 14th. So we've decided to have him come out. He has been on Outrageous Pumpkins, Food Network's Outrageous Pumpkins last year. And he's currently going to be on, premiering September 18th, going to be on Food Network's Halloween Wars 2022. So his name is Willie Tuz. He has, what's his business name? Food Designs. Oh gosh, his name's Willie Tuz. I can't remember his business name in Grand Junction. I apologize. But he is going to come out and make us a display. And we're trying to coordinate with the Rocky Mountain Giant Vegetable Growers to see if we can get some donations of some gigantic pumpkins and watermelons and gourds or whatever they can provide for us. They do have a weigh off the very next day, so they might not want to part with their prized possessions, and I'm not asking for their prized possessions, but something that's different that we don't normally see on a regular basis. So that confirmation hasn't been handed down to us yet, but he is going to be coming and making us a display to be on view out here in front of City Hall. He'll be here all day the 14th to carving, and it'll be on display for as long as it'll last, hopefully through the dance. That's all I got.
I had no idea there was a giant pumpkin carver or a Rocky Mountain giant gourd, what did you say?
Rocky Mountain Giant Vegetable Growers Club.
Okay. Of course you do. Tamara knows everybody.
They will be
idea.
having one of their weigh-offs the next day in Falcon.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you want to go see them all, they're all out there.
All right. And the street dance, is it like last year, the night after the
Trunk or treat.
trunk or treat? And you guys, are you hosting the trunk or treat or the city or?
The city is.
City is, okay. All right. I know last year there was a lot of kids there wanting candy. Are we going to have candy there this year at the dance at all?
Well, we're gonna have face painting this time. We're gonna have, the food vendors. They did really good last time, so,
Oh, those ice creams were incredible.
oh, yeah.
She'll be back.
Yeah.
She's coming back,
Yeah.
for sure.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, guys, for all you're doing for that. I think
You're
it's
welcome.
exciting. And I don't know, who else is going to have a pumpkin carver for their arts? I mean, come on.
He also
That's
does the
really cool.
displays at Denver Botanical Gardens for 2 weeks, a full 2 weeks after our
Right.
event. So that's why we couldn't have him the week of,
What, is he going to be carving literally all day?
yes.
Okay.
He'll be
All right.
here Thursday night. He's coming into town Thursday night. He'll carve starting at 9 o'clock on Friday, all day, and then it'll be up.
You ought to
After
let Aragon know, in case they just
Yes.
want to
Yeah.
walk the kids over for a
Yeah,
little while
that was the
to see it
intent,
going on.
too.
I mean, to me, that's something kind of
sure.
unique. So,
Be interesting.
yeah.
exciting.
All right, thank you very
Yeah.
much. All
Hold
right,
on.
let's get, did you have a question? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just as a point of order, I can't resist. You need to say your names for the recording, please.
Oh, Joni Carneal, Fountain Up, Fountain Ultimate Parties.
Rosa McCormick, Fountain Ultimate Parties.
Thank you.
All right, so I know we do have Habitat would like to take some photos, and so if let's everybody, if you'd like to be in the photos, feel free to step down, and we'll take care of that. Well, it's not and we'll reconvene the regular meeting at 6. Good evening. It is 6 p.m., September 13th, and we're beginning the city council meeting for this evening. Thank you. Please join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Thompson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Estes.
Here.
Councilmember Hinton.
Here.
Councilmember Corey.
Here.
Councilmember Rick.
Here.
Councilmember Applegate.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan.
Present.
All 7 members present.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to join me in a moment of silence, please, in memory of 2 things, 9/11 on Sunday and all the lives lost there and since. And Aurora had a lost Sunday morning of Officer Dylan Vakoff. And just join me for a moment of silence in remembrance of those things, please. Thank you. On to item 4.1, presentation. City cleanup voucher programs. Todd Evans, Adam Smith, Waste Connections.
There you go. Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's my pleasure to reintroduce Adam Smith. He is the site manager for the Waste Connections landfill. Is that you squeaking or me?
It's probably you. I don't
I
squeak.
would imagine.
I don't squeak or pop or anything.
We're going to find out.
Oh, we're gonna find out real
Yes.
quick.
So it's our pleasure tonight to basically announce a new partnership with Waste Connections in the city. Waste Connections was nice enough, probably about 2 years ago, with Adam's predecessor Barrett, who was a great partner to work with. They started sponsoring cleanup days out at the landfill. And they really, really helped and gave our citizens an opportunity to go out and do a free bed level load of trash or debris for free out there. So it was a great program, and actually it was so successful. I know Scott was one of these, and some other folks spent a couple hours in line out there because it was tough to get everybody in on that one day. So it also added a burden to the Waste Connections employees. So Adam sat down with Rosa and I, and we kind of brainstormed some different ideas. And I'm not sure if this was something you did over in Arizona.
Yeah, something we did in Arizona.
Was it?
Yeah.
But basically what we've come up with is we've come up with doing a voucher month for all Fountain residents. So what that means is rather than them having to schedule to do it on that one Saturday like we have in the past, Adam has done it in the past and came up with the idea. Rosa did the heavy lifting on this. But basically, our citizens will be able to come into City Hall, pick up a voucher, have proof of residency that they will also have to show when they go out and do the load. Because as we all know, we've had many folks that have tried to get around our cleanup efforts in the past with folks from other cities. But once they do that, they'll have the entire month of October to go out and utilize that voucher and utilize the services out at the landfill. So I'm going to spend a second and kind of go through the process with you, and we are going to advertise this on social media starting tomorrow. But I'm going to turn it over to Adam and just let him have a word with you, because it really truly is his work and sponsorship, and we appreciate him doing this for us.
Yeah, I
Adam?
appreciate it. Yeah. So we did this program back when I came from Arizona. It was highly successful. The biggest takeaway that we got when I was in Arizona is the safety side of it, right? Where we're not having a line down Squirrel Creek, that's a major highway, well, somewhat of a major highway, right? Thoroughfare, and we had people backed up all the way up to the corner there, Squirrel Creek and Link. That caused a lot of headaches. Some people are trying to get to the landfill and some people aren't. Some people are trying to get to the house, right? And then it also puts a lot of stress and pressure on my operators and the team itself to get everybody in a timely fashion. Everybody wants to get dumped. We have a certain time frame, and of course, with the lines, you're looking 2-3 hours down the road. So with this gives the opportunity for the city to actually pick a time. They can schedule it how they want through the whole entire month, right? So you got 31 days of the month. You've got really 20 some odd days to get what you need picked up. You come to City Hall, you'll grab the voucher, verify, then you just bring the voucher to us. We just verify everything's good there, then you go dump. It really alleviates a lot of the traffic. It's Monday through Saturday, right? So you could kind of pick a day and come out. So Is there a button we can push to
There
show?
is,
Okay.
yeah.
You can-
Paul, could you push that button for us and go to the next slide?
If you say.
I thought I had to do it.
Yeah,
No,
if-
you're good. You're good.
Adam, if you just say next, it magically works.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right,
So if
sweet.
you take a look on the right, that's the voucher that Rosa put together and then Waste Connections has approved. So it's got your minimal information that the folks will give. Again, you come to City Hall and pick that up. On the back of the voucher, it has those items that are prohibited that you can't take. So both on our Facebook and our social media, we will put what you can't take, because they do have items, several items that you can't take, or it's an extra charge if you do take it. So we want to remind folks of that. So we've kind of gone over that information. Next, Paul, if you would. So basically, this is what we're going to use in just the simple process. Go to City Hall, provide proof of residency, receive your voucher. In October 2022 only, insure the items that are allowed. Truckload is covered and only to the bed level. Now, if folks do show up, and you'll see that, then they will be charged extra. And we've had many folks through the years when we did these type of days that would literally take advantage of this and show up with huge trailers and huge truckloads rather than kind of meeting what the concept was. Go to Waste Connections landfill, show same fountain proof of residency, show voucher, and you'll be able to take care of and dump your load. Yeah. Next, Paul. So this is the advertisement that you will see that we will put out marketing. And as Rosa always does, she tried to include as much as possible on here. It is a little busy, but we have learned through experience ourselves, you have to put that on there. Waste Connections will have it, so folks will be able to look at it when they come out there as well. So other than that, Adam, unless you have anything to add, any questions from council that we could answer for you?
Bless you.
Bless you.
Councilmember Hinton?
I just wanted to add, this is a great idea that will help kind of alleviate some of the pressures of allowing it just on one day. Opening up to a month is awesome, and you guys' is creative thinking outside the box, and bringing what you used in Arizona here, the fountain is a great tool. So I think this will be awesome. We got a lot of residents that have things that have stored up that need to this will be a great opportunity to purge some of that stuff and get it to the proper place where it needs to be disposed. So thank you so much.
So they get one free load. And do we still, if they have a second load, do they still get half price for Fountain residents?
Yeah, we'll still
Yeah.
work that out.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So, because, sometimes you get to cleaning and it's a little bit more than
Yeah.
the one load.
we still
Okay,
honor that.
and the price on mattresses is really gone up.
It
Is
has.
there a place where people can dispose of mattresses that's a little bit cheaper?
Yes, there's a recycle facility down in Colorado Springs. We posted that, we sent it out to our customers, and a lot of the folks that call in, we actually give them that information. What we can also do for the advertisement as well is to actually post that to give you guys that information, and we could probably get that posted as well. A lot of the reason, I know a lot of people have asked why it's so expensive for mattresses, because they wreak havoc on our equipment, and it takes a lot, it's a lot of unsafe things happen with mattresses and wires when they get put under tension and pressure. So we just don't wanna take that risk. So we will take the risk, but there's gonna be a price for that risk, so.
Right, it's just nice if we can provide them with the alternative that's a little bit cheaper rather than the field down the street from my house.
Right.
Okay.
One year we did dumpster days, we had somebody show up with a trailer and trucks loaded over 20 mattresses.
Yeah.
One load.
I remember when we did a cleanup over at Royalty, there was somebody had like about a dozen in their backyard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay. All right, I think it's a fantastic program. I'm really excited. Councilmember Applegate?
Yeah, are couches considered the same as mattresses?
No, they're not.
Oh, so you'll take them if they're below the,
Yeah, if they're below the truck bed, yes.
tear the back off and lay it down?
Right, yes, yeah,
I got it. I was driving down Marshall the other day and saw a couch laying
yeah,
beside the
yeah,
road.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we appreciate it. Again, I'd like to thank Adam,
Oh.
and we hope to be back in front of you all. We're in discussion about some possible improvements over at the recycling center with Waste Connections help, so we hope to be back to you soon with that. You'll see Adam again, hopefully.
Yeah.
Make him a frequent flyer up here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you,
really,
brother.
very much. Thank you. And you said Rosa worked on it too? Thank you, Rosa. All right. Next item, F5, Economic Development Strategic Objective and Incentive Policy to Recruit Quality Commercial Development. Kimberly Bailey.
There we go. Evening, Mayor, Council, public. Thank you for time to present to you tonight. The F5 strategic objective that you've assigned to this particular department. It is regarding an a la carte option of incentive policies to recruit quality commercial development. So we've had a long-standing incentive matrix as published online, and we continue to procure dollars on behalf of those initiatives. But tonight is specific to the objective that you've assigned to the department. Next slide, please. So an incentive is actually a policy that creates, I actually got to look at my own thing because I don't want to keep turning over to the right here. It's a conditional rebate instrument, and I do call it an instrument. It's a financial instrument for businesses to set up shop and create and develop their own accord for the greater good of the community and the benefits thereof, whereby investing in capital investment, improved infrastructure, and job creation within a community. That's basically the definition of an incentive. Businesses must perform per their financial projections that they provide, and incentives are highly, highly dependent on the performance of use tax, sales tax, and property tax generations by said project that may come into a community. Next slide, please. There are several incentive instruments, and there are lots of acronyms in the world of economic development. So please stay attuned to some of these acronyms because they're going to pop up a little further in the presentation. Tax increment financing is called TIF, and it is specific to urban renewal districts. City of Fountain does have 4 urban renewal districts. The only project that has implemented such program of TIF is your South Academy Highlands sector. South Academy Highlands is purely based on sales tax, so it does not pull upon property tax and or use tax out of that particular district. So we're not pulling from other revenues that are assigned to different districts. Those districts may be metro districts or school districts. Those are not being tagged under that particular issuance of bonds. Private activity bonds or federal and state allocations. We actually receive our appropriation of private activity bonds from the state down to the county to us. And if you remember, I was recently in front of you about a month ago, and we had to reassign those PABs back to the county so they could be used on some kind of beneficiary project because we did not have a project that we could actually assign those to, unfortunately. Capital investment and business property exemption is at the state and county level. Strategic and industry are regional competitive based. So if a large regional project comes in that may land in our quadrant, we would partner with Colorado Springs, El Paso County, and they would equally contribute some of their incentives potentially on behalf of that business development mission. Revolving loan funds are actually quite popular, and they are called RLFs. You will find those common within special districts. Sanitation district could possibly be one of them. El Paso County actually uses revolving loan funds, but the primary utilization of this is the Pikes Peak Regional Building Authority. They actually have a very active revolving loan fund. And the premise of those is that that particular special district or agency puts aside particular dollars out of their budget, and then businesses can apply based on the criteria of those, and then those businesses naturally have to refund and repay those loans, and then it keeps revolving to the next user of those particular funds. And then the last one is called tax sharing agreements, TSAs. Those are issued at the city and or county level. This is primarily where the city of Fountain itself would apply or pledge funds based on a proposed project's revenue streams, and that's how a TSA is formulated. It's highly important to recognize that TSAs established by a city or county are 100% exempt from TABOR. Hypothetically, if a Walmart came in and asked for a tax sharing agreement, any revenues derived from an approved tax sharing agreement by this council base could be 100% held and retained by the city to be used. If it's not sheltered under a TSA, then that boost in revenues, if you're beyond your TABOR cap, have to go back to the state. So it's a tax shelter basis for us to procure those revenues based on that proposed project, so we could help fund, hypothetically, PD or hypothetically Parks and Rec out of our budget stewardness, okay? I'm gonna pause there for a minute before I go any further. Is there any area gray that you would like better clarification on.
So I was at a meeting with some daycare providers, and one of the difficult things about starting a daycare is getting the equipment for the kids, right? A play kitchen, it all just adds up. Do they qualify for the capital equipment under the county? They could apply for that?
They may. It actually is also based on if they are considered nonprofit or for-profit operations. There are some legalities of the eligibility of a business, but it's quite possible they may.
And so we would send them to the county for something like that? Okay.
Yes, we would.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Next slide, please. So what is the case basis of an incentive to be considered? So these are the three conditions that economic development and the city look at to eligibility criteria. First is it a primary employer that creates healthy job creation and livable wages? You may have not heard of the term livable wages, but that's come to par in the last 6 years. Everybody can make a wage, hopefully, if they're seeking employment, but is it livable? Is it something that can, affordably deal with your livable expenses on your day-to-day means? The other area that we look at for credible conditions is it stemming leakage, retail leakage in our community based on the comp plan definition that we have. And that's why you may see more incentives come to par for this council to adopt or consider based on a retailer coming into our community. And remember, if we provide it under a tax sharing agreement, then those increased revenues are harbored from Tabor, okay? And the last one is entrepreneurialism or business incubator base. It's important to recognize that 30% of our business occupational licenses are actually home-based businesses. And that's your ecosystem to help support new viable businesses have a base of entry into your community, but then have the catapult to grow over time. So if there's an opportunity to support that ecosystem, it's highly, highly in our best interest to try to do that. But again, incentives are primarily based on sales tax, use tax, and property tax generation. Next slide. So what are the metrics we look at based on a sizing up, say, a business that's looking to come into a community? We look at the quality of jobs created, and again, that livable wage attainment. We also look at the capital infrastructure that they're putting in, investment and construction and off-site improvements. A lot of times along your Mesa Ridge or US 85 corridor, those are both state-owned and operated highways. There's a lot of conditional off-site improvements that come with new business entry. And so sometimes that project cannot afford those costs on the onset, but we look at providing a tax sharing agreement or stacking those levels of incentives that allow them to have a rebate, conditional rebate over time for those public improvements. We also look at how does it enhance and diversify the city's commercial base to make sure that we are bringing in and providing as much lifestyle and recreation or entertainment facilities or venues for our community populace. There's also something called direct and indirect multipliers. And I don't know if you've heard those terms before in economic development realm, but a direct multiplier is how many jobs are they creating, what is the capital investment they're bringing, and how does that spur or support ancillary build out in a business corridor. Indirect multipliers are those that are actually specific to the operation. So are they expanding the supply chain in a community that helps reciprocal economies happen, right? Your cleaning groups, your supply chain of manufacturing, and or just basic customary needs of a business operation to come in and service that new commercial development. So those are indirect multipliers. Lastly, are we looking at a new economic engine for a community? Is it something that just doesn't exist here and or doesn't exist on the regional stratosphere of this particular area? And we look at those things to say, are we adding value to support through an incentive agreement? Now, those are all the bennies, right? So what's the offset of the bennies? We have to look at what is the cost of comparable impacts associated with this new operation. Hypothetically, does it create more bandwidth or demand for PD to be responsive based on the size of a development? If you bring in a huge entertainment anchor, let's just say it's a movie theater with 5 different bars that associate with it. Well, that's going to put a pretty big demand on fire and PD then. And we have to look at that balance when we're considering an incentive agreement basis. Any questions there before I go on, or clarity?
Councilmember Rick?
Yes, you're probably not the person to ask. It may be Todd, it may be Sylvia. You talked about 30% of the businesses over the last several years have been home-based businesses. How many business license for home-based businesses have we denied in the last several years? I know there's certain restrictions in the zoning ordinance that restrict where home-based businesses could be. I'm just interested to see if we had numbers as to how many we've denied.
I am not able to speak to that one.
Councilmember Rick, although I don't have the number in my head, there aren't very many, and typically we would deny a business license, home-based business license for something like an automotive shop, something that was not allowable in that zone district. But typically they're not denied for home-based businesses, just on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Applegate?
Yeah, I was curious about the living wage requirement, and how would you adjust that, and who would you adjust it to? And there are businesses, like if a movie theater moved in, the people working there would not get very much money. They'd be at minimum wage. What would you consider a living wage? Who would decide that?
So it's actually dictated by the state. The state dictates what is a livable wage for the community based on per county ratios. So Denver is a different livable wage than El Paso County versus Teller County.
What is ours?
Ours is 57,000 and change is considered a livable wage.
That's not going to happen to a lot of businesses.
Correct. So that matrix of eligibility that I talked about, those 5 points, they don't have to holistically hit all 5 points, right? We have to look at what is the added value that we're gaining out of those basis points.
Okay, that's a lot of money. Any service jobs that you're going to have, that's a lot of money.
I understand that. You're totally correct.
So, but we wouldn't refuse some business, like if a 2-screen movie theater wanted to come in, we would be okay with that, even though they're paying minimum wage.
Correct, because they're hitting the second point, which is it stemming the retail leakage of the community? Right? And we can say yes and check that box.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure. Okay, next slide, please. So incentive accountability. As I mentioned before, we do online have fully published our matrix of incentives, and it is an a la carte mix of all the criteria that I just talked about. It is a total of 26 different incentive programs that are eligible based on the business, okay? And again, you don't have to hit all metrics to be eligible for some of the incentives. And you also don't have to be a new business. You can be an existing business, just not have known about it and still take advantage of some of those incentive programs, okay? So there is a balance base there. Paul, may you click over to the next document that I have on file? Every year, annually, Economic Development does provide council in the springtime an incentive report. This report is based on tax sharing agreements, going back to those acronyms again, specifically adopted by City of Council of Fountain. So this incentive report did not get delivered to you in the spring this year because of 2 reasons. One, we have a newly seated council, and I wanted to make sure that we could have this education up front before you got this report. Secondly, you tagged the department with a specific initiative on incentives, and we thought it was more appropriate to package those 2 together. As you can see, we've had incentives since 1998. All of those since 2013 have fully closed out. If you may scroll up a little bit, Paul. Thank you. There are two with asterisks associated to them. Those asterisks are defining that they failed to meet the conditions of the rebate. Hence, those incentive agreements collapsed and were not fully paid out. So at no time does a tax sharing agreement ever pay up front, nor does it ever pay you more than what you earn and bring into a community. So there is a balance scale to incentive agreements, and there is accountability and measuring to those agreements. In the last few years, you have seen that council has adopted 3 new tax sharing agreements. These are the terms that they do become effective and valid. Tax sharing agreements take up to 14 months to actually start to trigger an effect. Again, you have to earn sales tax, you have to earn use tax, and you have to earn property tax improvements or increases in the city revenue bucket for you to be able to be paid out on those conditional rebates of incentives. So you need that 14 to 16 month leg time to be able to offset and counterbalance those rebates that may be entitled to you under these agreements. Customarily, agreements have a time clock of anywhere to 2 years to 5 years. It's highly unusual they go beyond 5 years. Scroll up just a little bit more for me, Paul. Thank you. So for 2013 incentives, economic development is always on the radar for attraction and recruitment and supporting expansion of existing businesses. These are the 4 areas that are on our high pressing markers to serve our community, which has been communicated to us from council. So at any point you feel that there's a different area we should be focusing on, we're too weak in serving the community in certain quadrants of retail or higher livable wage attainment businesses, please come have a conversation with economic development. Any questions on that accountability report? Okay. Your next one will come to you in April and May. We'll get you back on to customary cycle. So you'll see that report come back to you in the next 6-8 months, if I'm counting my months correctly at this point in time. Paul, can you switch me back to the PowerPoint slide, please? Next slide. Old Town is a very special area for our community and a focus area for economic development and urban renewal attraction. Beyond the 26 incentives that we've just talked about and how and when the city itself would support tax sharing agreements, this is actually a collaborative creative list of offshoot programs. These programs actually qualify for Old Town because typically you have to designate your Main Street district or you have to show a low to moderate income distressed populace to actually qualify for any of these additional programs. Again, these are on the matrix, but these are one-offs and only allowable within the Old Town and Gateway District area. So I wanted to make sure that they were forefronted. We've done a CDBG facade improvement program with the county. That is the era that we did that particular program. We also did a CHAFA, Cooperative Business Fixtures and Equipment. That is a revolving loan fund through CHAFA that is eligible for improving energy efficiencies and retrofitting aged product with lightings and or HVAC systems, those types of things. RBD has a dangerous building program. We have actually actively participated in that program with businesses 3+ times. And it's been very, very much a great return on investment for those businesses as well. Revitalizing Main Streets came out of the Department of Local Labor and Employment as well as Department of Local Affairs. This was an offshoot program for COVID recovery. This is one of the areas that states sunk a lot of money into, and we did participate in 3 separate programs under that particular umbrella. And then the last one is the overlay district that council supported in 2021 timeframe. Economic development did partner with city planning. We proposed an overlay district under that particular program. And I'm very pleased to say our first participant is the Fountain Creek Winery that is coming into our corridor on the very south end. So that is the first entry over this 5-year pilot program that council did support to see if we could get any traction happen in this particular quadrant of the community. Any other questions on that at all, or comments?
The closing that's going to happen Friday right out here for the crosswalk, is that part of the Old Town and program that we talked about?
That was actually under the Revitalizing Main Street program.
Right. And
Yes.
they're going to stamp, I can't remember what we decided on. Were we going to stamp the concrete when they do that?
They're
or-
actually going to grade down the actual intersection area so the snowplows don't keep stripping up the, it's a particular top name for it. I'm looking, thank you. One of
Could
my
you repeat-
technical
can we
people would
repeat-
know.
Can we repeat that so people can hear it?
Thermoplastic.
Thank you.
Yes, they will finish that off.
Okay, great, thank you.
My pleasure. Next slide, please. So where are we from incentive policy, fiscal health? We are very high. We have all the elements to really procure and attract and support existing businesses to grow and develop in our community. What we have the offset of that is we have a lot of infrastructure build out that has to happen. We have grazing land. I will tell you that we have about 500 acres of zoned commercial land that is vacant. It's just cattle grazing, open farmland. And so in the condition it lies, it takes a lot of heavy lift for a development to come in. And hence why we need that layer of multiple point of consideration. It's probably in your head, what would that classify as? Would be if the city actually opened up a program as a revolving loan program, where you offered loans out of your general revenue to help a business get up and foot running in a particular area or community-wide. But that's an extreme example, and you only go there if you have a precedence case as to why you need to be that extreme in the response of an incentive. Okay, next slide, please.
Oh, Kimberly, we had a question
Oh,
from
yes.
Councilmember Hinton on that one.
I believe that last slide is extremely important for residents to kind of understand. I get the question a lot, and I give them the brief kind of overview of my limited knowledge of economic development, and I make sure that they go to your department. But it's important to realize that the city's doing everything we can as far as incentive and trying to bring in businesses, but it's really up to them to do that. And I think that's the hardest educational piece for us to be able to kind of give our citizens about that. So as we're going on with this, I really just ask for our citizens to really understand that we are doing everything we can to make business development in the city of Fountain possible.
Thank you for that comment, Councilmember Hinton. Appreciate that. And I'd just like to extend on that thought for a second. So I know entertainment is definitely a high pressing point. When we did have Citizens Academy sessions and you came in as a public citizen and got a 101 on economic development, A, your brain walked out of there pretty big, overloaded. But B, you actually get to resonate, why is it a challenge to develop sometimes? It's just not our community. It's the industry of development that is a challenge. And as I opened up this conversation, incentives are highly predicated and based on sales tax, use tax, and property tax. If you have an entertainment anchor come in, which is hypothetically a movie theater or a go-kart track or something that is, viable to get your, spend a couple hours on, that standalone business does not generate those three caveats. They need a bandwidth of ancillary retailers to also partner with them. And then that lifts that economic engine to support an incentive agreement. So I just want to come full circle on that comment.
So give us a little, let's just play for instance here for a second. You get a bowling alley that comes down here. Okay, the bowling alley isn't going to bring a lot of money in by itself because it's basically a service
Correct.
industry. And there are not taxes generated with services, right?
Correct.
And there's not necessarily a lot of equipment taxes with it.
Correct.
So what do you need to come with that? Because everybody always says, why don't we have a bowling alley? Why don't we have a movie
Yes.
theater? Why don't we have a miniature golf? And you're saying if we get those things without the, so what are some of the, that you would say what you would need to come with a bowling alley to make it a viable asset to our community?
So for a bowling alley, I'd need a sit-down family restaurant. I'd also need some ancillary lifestyle goods, say a Kohl's or a JCPenney's or whatever else kind of buckets as you see on, say, Powers, right? They come as a set kind of collaborative site development plan. Our Achilles heel is we have landowners that don't have a master plan vision. They say, oh, I have 100 acres, but I'm only going to sell a fifth of an acre for a Carl's Jr., hypothetically. Well, Carl's Jr. can't support the whole thing, right? Because there's a lot of additional build out needed. And also, the flip of that is a standalone bowling alley can equally not support the whole of it. So we work very closely, we, city planning, utilities, we work very closely to help educate our landowners on regards to the mass of a vision that has to come in to serve our communities' leakage that we have from a retail corridor.
Okay, so you got the bowling alley, why do you need the Kohl's and the sit-down restaurant?
Because they are my sales tax generator and they're my property tax generation.
Okay, and then people stay a little bit longer and do a little bit more shopping, and then, okay, all righty. Thank you. That just makes it real simple. Just put in
And
simple
I'm
terms.
trying to keep it
of-
simple, 'cause
No,
it can
but
get
to give
really
some
deep.
example, I know, and I hate to say those names because then people think, oh, they're coming, and we haven't said they're coming.
Correct.
We're just giving examples, and you're explaining pretty simply why they all have to come as a package deal and not just necessarily standalones.
Exactly. For
And that-
us to support that entry, we have to have a larger mix. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Councilmember Hinton, your light's still on. Did you have another question?
I did. I hate to beat a dead horse, but I got
That's
a
fine.
lot of people that just beat me up about arcing up. That was a great example. In layman's term, we just need support services around the services that come in to the city of Fountain. It's not just one entity that can do it standalone. I get why don't we have this or why don't we have that? We need more than just that, and it takes a lot of planning and effort to make that happen.
Very true. Thank you. All right, so we're coming to the home stretch. Your policy summary. So you have 26 pre-existing incentives under an umbrella of service providers, and I mentioned those in the opening third slide. Who are the contributing partners under the stack of incentives we are equitably able to participate in? New things on the horizon right now is we've been in front of you a few times on the EPA Brownfields Coalition grant. The coalition was just informed by the EPA. We have a 1-year extension to continue to use and apply those dollars. So there could be future opportunity with existing landowners to revitalize their sites under those grant stewarded dollars. You also have the enterprise zone. We have our enterprise zone runs from the north tip of 8587 at Main Street all the way down to exit 128. And it ebbs and flows and it grabs commercial property along the way. Enterprise zone does not touch residential properties, okay? We just finished a revision of that boundary with the State of Colorado Economic Development Commission. We had some Swiss cheeses along that boundary, some properties that were not included for whatever reason at a prior time and date. And so we just got the notice last week that the State Commission did adopt and accept our revised enterprise zone. So there's potentially new businesses that can now participate in that program. That program runs every 12 to 15 years, and then we redesignate the boundary in a partnership with the state and the county. And there are 7 tiers to that enterprise zone. It is highly, highly beneficial to a business to participate in that program. I can't speak loud enough on behalf of that program. And then I just wanted to provide you some examples of commercial one-off tax sharing agreements. Again, remember TSAs are at the city and county level specifically. These are areas we could maybe come forth to you and ask you to support on behalf of. So I just wanted to shout these out. Energy efficiencies per property dwellings. Your 85-87 corridor was built mostly in the 1970s and 60s. It is highly, highly outdated from an energy efficiency standpoint. So if you're looking to inject or support some business capital, that could be one creative solution that we may work with city utilities on behalf of. We have a facade beautification aesthetics program based on district vitality. Again, it mostly focuses on your Main Street corridor, which is Old Town and Gateway District area. But there also is an option to extend it to the North 85-87 if we wanted to create or spur some beautification at that north end entry of our community valley. We have land conversion to commercial spec. That is one of our Achilles heels. I've mentioned it already. We have over 500 acres of commercial zone land. It's agricultural based land. It has no infrastructure. So the only way to move that needle to help landowners see a more master plan vision to bring new services in this community is to look at, is there an incentive possibly to help that land to commercial spec transition on behalf of those needs? And then the last one is venture capital and entrepreneurialism. That is based on new economies. That goes back to the point of home-based businesses, how you support that ecosystem that starts to blossom, and then it needs to move into some new commercial spec space because they outbuild the spare bedroom. They out storage the garage, right? They need to move. They need to have that latitude of viability. So that may be also an area to consider at some future point in time. Next slide, please. That's really what I would like to present to you tonight regarding an a la carte options. Again, we are in a very healthy position as a city to help steward and bring in new commercial development, but I'm more than glad to address any questions and welcome to receive any comments.
Councilmember Duncan?
Okay, so lots of information, and thank you for this great presentation. Because I'm a tangible person and visual, when you say 500 acres of commercial land, do we have a map that designates that this is the commercial land? Because when one of the things that come to mind when we're talking about commercial properties is access. So, are the trucks able to come? So I would like to know where these 500 acres are, and do we have the capability of commercial trucks going through those properties?
So I can say yes and no. So if you go to economic development, we do participate in Technology Services GIS platform, which is your map-based platform. If you go there, you will find parcels identified stewarding commercial development interests. So when a site selector is looking at your community, the first place they go to is online. They like to see where's your available land assets or vacant buildings for redevelopment. We have the former and not the latter available in that description. So your business corridors, you have 5 business corridors, North 85, 87, Mesa Ridge. Mesa Ridge does assemble almost 300 acres of available virgin land. It's in the south end of Mesa Ridge between there and Comanche Village. You also have Banley Drive, which is the frontage road to I-25. That's highly attractive. There's a challenge, though. You have a lot of overlay easements in that area, and it precludes where buildings are allowed to be positioned on certain parcels. But we have a lot of land on Banley as well. And then you have a lot of infill pockets. And your infill pockets are Old Town, Link Road, that are already zoned commercial available development areas. And then your last quadrant is your gateway industrial district. So that's where your heavier, medium-sized industrial operations would like to harbor down there because they're very disruptive in the middle of a community center. So they like to be off-centered and kind of nestled in their familiarity of like-kind businesses. So I think that maybe addresses most of your question. And excuse me, I totally forgot the 5th one, which is up at South Academy Highlands. So South Academy Highlands is really your bread and butter for lifestyle services. And there's 2 more phases of build out actually available up in South Academy Highlands.
And just one thing to add, if we could recommend to anyone who's looking at any type of a commercial piece, small home business, medium, large, to make sure they set up an appointment and come in and talk to Christy before they purchase. Because where it gets really tough for us is when folks purchase that, making assumptions that it's zoned correctly, that there's access points, as you mentioned, those other things, and then they'd find out it's not the fact after they purchase it. So if anyone ever talks to you about that, have them come talk to Christy in planning before they purchase anything.
So this property across the street, all the tenants are out of that property?
The historic Woodman Hall property. So all the residential is out of that property. The property is moving back to its origin, which is 100% commercial operational base. We actually do have our first commercial tenant, Yoga Zenner is in there actually operating, and she takes up half of the 2nd floor.
Okay, my last question. So we talked about the 3, you saying 3 different companies coming into those 3 tiers that they provide funding to the city. So if someone said, well, the standalone, the Family Dollar that's in Countryside, that's just one building, does that building compensate for those 3 tiers, the property tax, and does that cover all of those bases?
That operation would,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay, so not like, so when the property where we have the coffee shop and no, right up by this high school, where we have I forgot the coffee shop. Dutch Brothers, the Dutch Brothers, thank you.
Okay.
Councilman, so those people came in together.
Yes, they did.
Okay, so that's the difference, because I had somebody text me about that, so I
Yes,
just.
and that is, if we went back to the annual accountability report, that is one of your current tax sharing agreements in play because of those 4 anchors that all came in at once. Yes.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, one more, because I've been looking at that intersection, and I don't know, Todd, I guess we brought that up, that's not us, that's county, right? That intersection, because I see a lot of children after school going across to the gas station, and I know we have a resident here that didn't want that cross section. And I don't know if there's something that we can do, because I see that daily. The children are trying to cross to get over to the gas station. And I mean, it's so busy, and I don't know, what can we do? Is there anything we can do?
So we're going to have a CDOT engineer come and give a briefing on Mesa Ridge, Syracuse, other things that are happening in that area. And that's the person who we would want to talk to about that, is the CDOT intersection. We did have a lot of improvements that had been agreed upon by the developer if they did build on the other side, but those went away when Maverick moved to this side. So a lot of those monetary improvements that we had agreed upon kind of disappeared when they came over to this side. So there's not a whole lot of money that we have right now to put to it, but that's a CDOT issue.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hinton?
Thank you, Kilmer, for this brief. This question happens a lot. Unfortunately, I work with 3 of my colleagues who are Fountain residents, and they try to beat me up every morning about economic development. So I'm calling them out. I won't say their names, but I've told them to come and see it and come to a meeting. And so this is great. I think this is something that I'll probably use once this goes we stream it on YouTube. I'm going to use this portion right here to kind of educate people about how economic development works in our city.
Great. And just let me know if there's anything more we should add to help educate in regards to that scope.
For sure.
On the previous slide,
Yes?
when you were talking about the, how you, I just lost the name of it, the development district you just redid on 85.
Development District.
Enterprise zone,
Enterprise
thank you.
zone, thank you.
Ooh, 2 points for Scott over there. The enterprise zone, you just did on Highway 85. How do the new people that are just incorporated in that, are you going to send them letters to say that they're now part of it?
Yes, we're waiting on the shapefile to come from the county, because the county is actually the administrator of that program. And once I get that shapefile, we'll be uploading to our GIS platform to make sure the current information is out there. And the county works with us kind of on that marketing awareness. Yes, so we will be sending some of that awareness out to those particular eligibilities along that corridor.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Rick?
Do we have any self-defense businesses in town we can refer Councilmember Hinton to, so he doesn't get beat up so bad? And
Well, I know PPIR supports Homeland Security and technical training. He may be able to get educated there a little bit.
I got some big shoulders, so it's all that they really can do.
Please feel free to come back to me if you have additional questions, okay?
Do we have someone online with a question? It sounded like the thing was doing that sound.
No, Madam Mayor, we lost the stream for a moment. It looks like it's come back up. though.
Okay, I just want to make sure there wasn't somebody.
And it looks like we dropped it again.
Okay,
It looks like it's on Microsoft's side.
all right, thank you. The door, never mind. Okay, all righty, there's no, Yeah, I know mine, so that's great.
It says the presenter is Sylvia Huffman.
Yeah, I heard that. Mine doesn't say it on here. Okay.
Still have two alternate positions available on that board.
Okay, so what would council like to do with that?
Heritage Improvement Maintenance District.
Councilmember Rick?
Second the motion?
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to appoint Elizabeth Eagle to the Heritage Maintenance District. Please vote. Okay,
term previously who had filled an unfulfilled or an unexpired term. If appointed tonight, this four-year term would expire on September 13th of 2026.
all right, and we do have Alan Rainville here, right?
No, he's not here tonight.
Not here tonight. These people. All righty. All right, so what would council like to do with that? Hang on just a second. Councilmember Corey?
Motion to approve Alan Rainville for a 4-year term to the Planning Commission.
Councilmember Duncan?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Seven yes, motion carried.
Okay, we have an item C, reappoint Rick Clements to the Park Board for a 4-year term. Sylvia Huffman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. Member Clements has been with our Park Board now for 4 years. He is seeking another 4-year term, and I believe he is, or he was here with us. He's hiding. There he is, he's hiding.
Yes, he's in the back, yes. All right. Mr. Clements, did you want to say anything tonight? You're good, all right. Thank you very much for the 4 years you've already done. You're signing up for 4 more, woo-hoo. All right, so what would council like to do with that item? Councilmember Estes?
I move to appoint Mr. Clements to another 4-year term on the Park Board.
Councilmember Duncan?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to appoint Mr. Clements to the Park Board. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
7 yes, motion carried.
Okay, item D, appoint Brent Johnson to the Park Board for a 4-year term. Ms. Huffman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. As you may recall, Mr. Brent Johnson served with our Planning Commission for a couple of terms. He has term limited from the Planning Commission and is now interested in being a part of our Park and Recreation Advisory Committee.
All right, Mr. Brent Johnson, would you like to come up tonight? And thank you for being willing to continue serving on a board or commission.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Appreciate your consideration. I enjoyed my time on the Planning Commission. It was 6 years to fill out an unexpired term and then a 4-year term. And I was disappointed when I heard I was going to be term limited out this month, but I'm eager to continue to serve the community in my own little way, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you very much. Any questions from other council members for him? I'm going to assume the lights are lit for the making the motion. So Councilmember Duncan?
I move to appoint Brent Johnson as a regular member to the Park and Recreation Advisory Board for a 4-year term until September 13th, 2026.
Councilmember Rick?
Second the motion?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint Brent Johnson to the Park Board. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
7 yes, motion carried.
All right, thank you for all the volunteers tonight. Appreciate you coming in tonight. Thank you. We're on to item 5, City Council agenda requests. City Council shall use this time to request any items for future consideration, and I'm going to start to my right this evening. Councilmember Duncan?
I don't have anything.
Thank you. Councilmember Applegate?
I don't have anything.
Mayor Pro Tem Estes?
Nothing this evening.
Councilmember Hinton?
Nothing this evening, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Corey?
Nothing at this time.
Councilmember Rick?
Nothing tonight.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go on to item 6, public to be heard. Citizens may address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Council may not be able to provide an immediate answer, but will direct staff to follow up. Out of respect for the council and others in attendance, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Remember, when the yellow light comes on, you have 30 seconds left. When the red light's on, you're done. All right, I have a card tonight from Travis Baker. Come on down, Mr. Baker, and tell us about the VFW events going on. I don't know, can you compete with the Oh My Gourd?
Of course.
Of
Of course we
Okay,
can.
all right, you're going to go for it.
Travis Baker, Post Commander, VFW 6461, Fountain, Colorado. The biggest thing I want to bring up tonight is we have a young member in our area. He is actually a 15-year-old at Mesa Ridge Parkway, or Mesa Ridge High School, and his dream was to be a Marine, and that dream was taken away from him by his diagnosis of stage 4 bone cancer. We are hosting his birthday party at the VFW. We have 2 live bands, we have 2 food trucks, and over 200 people that are going to be coming. And we would like to extend the invitation to our entire community to help come support this young man. His name is Aiden Cooper. 3 days after his birthday, he's actually going to have his leg amputated. And his cancer has already moved into his lungs. So we have sponsored this family for the course of the last couple of months. We've provided a lot of things to the family. And at this point, we are looking for any support we can get community-wise for this young man, because being stage 4 bone cancer, this might be his last one. He turned 16 years old. So this will be on the 8th of October. It will be from 1 until complete. The current slotted time is 1 to 7, but with the 2 live bands, we have a feeling this might extend past the 7 o'clock p.m. So I'd like to invite anybody that would like to attend to come on out.
Could you say the date again?
Yes, ma'am. It is 8 October at 1 o'clock in the afternoon until 7 o'clock in the evening.
Okay, October 8th, 1 to 7?
Correct.
Okay, all righty. And I'm sure you've reached out to our fire and police departments?
So this all just came up this week, but we have not done direct communications with fire and police yet. So this young man is going to be inducted into becoming an honorary Marine at this event, and the Marines are going to be presenting him with his own uniform. So.
Okay. Could PD, could you, and fire, could you cut with them if there's anything we can do to help from that angle? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to go direct to the fire and police. Just wanted to get this out.
You just did.
Yeah, exactly. Any other
right.
questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Huh?
Thank you very, very much for helping in this situation and getting the Marines and everybody involved.
Yep.
And I will definitely be checking my calendar, and
Thank
hopefully
you.
everybody else will too.
Okay.
So thank you. Todd, can we kind of get that out to Stair? Scott, can we kind of get out the staff too? Yeah, all right.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right. Okay, are there any other citizens to be heard in the audience? Anybody online?
No one online, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to go on to item 7, consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately at the discretion of the council. We have 2 items on the consent agenda, the approval of the minutes and resolution number 22046. And Councilmember Rick.
Move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Councilmember Duncan.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, please vote.
7 yes, motion carried.
Okay. Item 8, old business, we have none. Item 9, new business. A, consideration of items removed from the consent agenda. There was nothing removed. Item B, review and approve creation of an assistant city attorney position. Scott Trainer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Really appreciate the opportunity to be up here and discuss this with you. Actually, the next two items are both involving the creation of the request to create a couple new positions for the city. I just want to sort of preface both of these discussions to really just lay out there that we don't have a really strong budget. And so therefore, when it comes to personnel issues, we really take them seriously and we really dig in deep before we propose new positions to you. And we explore, are there different ways to handle this workload? Are there different ways we can approach this and so forth? So when I come to you with a couple different positions, you'll just know that we spend a lot of time really digging in and trying to figure out, is this the right thing at the right time? How can we make it work, et cetera? So hopefully I'll be able to answer any questions, explain these positions. I know you have the agenda commentary, so I'm not going to read it verbatim. So I hope you've had a chance to review it. The first one is for the creation of assistant city attorney position. We created the city attorney position back in 2014. Up to that point, we had contract city attorneys, which are great. But you have a very limited amount of access to city attorneys, and the cost is fairly high for what you get. And so at that time, we had a lot of discussions, did a lot of digging into what our needs were, and explored bringing that in-house, which we did. And so since 2014, we've had our own in-house attorney, which has been a huge boon to us. Anytime we've had a need, whereas in the past, when a department might have a need, maybe they had questions about something legal, ordinance, resolution, contract, you name it, there would be some degree of reticence, as you can imagine, because the first thing on their mind is the need, but then the immediate second thing is, oh geez, can I call this contract attorney, and what's it gonna start costing me immediately, because that clock starts ticking. Well, that changed once we brought it in-house, and which has been a great thing. So that's really allowed us access to someone who has that legal background, and it's allowed us to have a lot of conversations over a lot of different things. I provided you a sort of a list there, not a comprehensive list, but I hope it gives you a flavor of the real, the type of workload that we place on the city attorney. These are things that we probably should have been doing with a contract attorney, but there was really no way to do this with a contract attorney just because of the sheer amount of hours involved. And so we brought it in-house, and that's been a really great thing. We've really benefited from that. So as time has gone on, what we found is that because of the demands, the service level demands from all of our different departments, and really just frankly the needs of the city, we've discovered that one person cannot do this job. And so we've explored a couple different options. We've had some conversations about, hey, what are some different ways we can change your workload? Well, we can talk about that all day long, but at the end of the day, when departments have contracts that need to be reviewed and signed or drafted, at the same time that we have ordinances that have to be reviewed, or resolutions that have to be reviewed, or lawsuits that need to be just dealt with, or personnel issues, there's just not a real easy way to reduce that workload without adding some bodies to help out with that. So we explored a couple different options. We explored the option of, well, maybe what we need to do is take a look at an outside attorney again, not to replace our current attorney, but to supplement our attorney. And so what about looking at an outside attorney law firm to support Troy in his efforts to, we would assign a certain amount of that workload, that work volume to that outside attorney, that law firm, and that would help. And I think that you can see I put together some pros and cons for each of these. The pros are it's very scalable, right? You can increase that as needed or decrease it. I don't really see, based on our historic experience, a lot of decreasing happening, but certainly you can increase it as necessary. Well, the challenge with that is because of our needs to afford to do something like that, that actually ends up being the highest cost, just because of the cost per hour for private attorneys and law firms that specialize in municipal law. That's not something that every attorney does. You actually have to have someone who knows what they're talking about. There's not a lot of firms that do that. The costs are very high. So we explored, well, what about hiring an in-house paralegal? Someone who could provide him some legal assistance at an administrative level, help out with a lot of these legal issues, at least a lot of the paperwork involved with them, et cetera. And there's a lot of pros to that as well. That actually overall ends up being the least expensive at a gross level option, and it provides a lot of help. However, so it definitely reduces the workload. However, as we started discussing the options between that or bringing in an assistant attorney, we started exploring like, how can we somehow figure out within our own resources, how can we pay for that assistant attorney? And so we looked at some different things that we were spending on legal services right now. Things like in-house prosecuting. We do prosecuting right now. We have IGZA needs that need to be, IGZAs actually bring in, there's a portion of the fees that we charge the Army that are for legal services, for contract review. So we have those. We have in our HR department, sometimes we have to do outside investigations. And so all those costs, when you look at them, and we actually have a couple small line items that are set aside for legal services in the event that we need outside legal counsel on various issues. So we took a look at all those and we said, if we want to replace those and create those avoided costs and sort of take those in to use those to help justify hiring a position, you can't do that with a paralegal because the paralegal can't provide those same level of services. You can do it with an in-house attorney. And so we decided, our best option is probably to bring in an assistant attorney who can help out with this workload, that we can have them specialize in some areas like IGZAs, like HR, like contract reviews, whatever those different things are, that like prosecutions. Right now, it's been a relatively new thing, but Troy's even helping out with prosecutions. Spent time today, in fact, helping out with prosecuting through our court. So there's a huge workload. And so we're looking at that saying, hey, that may be a higher expense overall gross than a paralegal. However, it allows us to benefit in these different areas and provide some succession planning in our legal department, which we don't have right now. So you'll see that the proposal in front of the council right now is to bring in an outside attorney, bring them in-house. As an assistant attorney, we would be talking about really an entry-level position, someone that Troy, probably HR as well, because they'd be working in the HR realm, would spend a lot of time coaching and bringing along and getting them ready to do work in these different areas. So that's the big picture. You can see the recommendation and the reasoning behind that recommendation. And you can see the overall cost. The overall net cost, however, ends up being about $30,000, which ends up being the least hit on our budget. And so at this point, that's what we're recommending to the City Council. Now, what kind of questions do you have for me on that?
Councilmember Hinton?
More of a comment.
Yes, sir.
I do like the direction moving in as the city grows. I mean, we have to be more proactive than in the reactionary mode. I understand Troy, he's an amazing attorney, but he's one individual. If we could clone him, we would. I'm sure he needs that assistance and help to be able to do that. So I do like the direction, and I appreciate the pros and cons. It helps me make a very educated decision that I need.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Excuse me.
So my question is, why now? We've talked about this before. I prefer to do increased staffing during the budget process. Whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not, there's a perception out there that when residents come before council and want things, the perception is, well, we never have any money. But when staff comes and says, I want people, all of a sudden we find money. Now, I'm not saying that's the way it is. That's a perception.
Certainly, yeah.
Okay? So help me understand why we can't wait on this until we do the budget process. Because then during the budget process, we can say, here's how much money we're spending on residents, and here's the little money we're using to increase staffing.
I think that's a great question. The need's been there for a couple of years, and so we've been holding out for a couple of years. Really trying to do what we can to continue to float along the way we have been for 1 year. It finally got to a point as our prosecutors started, so with the changeover with courts, right? We got a new judge, and our prosecutors looking at it, we're seeing a lot of expansions in the prosecutions. And the prosecutors now saying, hey, you know what, I can't continue at this workload. So in order for me to continue, the price is gonna have to go up. So we're looking at that saying, from a timing standpoint, then we need to make the decision now, because we can't afford to continue to increase those overall costs. The other part of that is so that's the one piece, that's a prosecution piece, which is a big chunk of helping to pay for this position. We would rather use those funds, putting it into a position that's in-house. The other part of that is with our IGZAs, again, we're looking at those, and I know we've been talking about that, and we've actually got the position approved to do the contract person who's gonna help manage the contracts day in and day out. And so as we're looking at that and we're looking at expanding the IGZAs, we're saying, this again is a perfect time to get someone in-house, starting getting them trained so that they'll be ready when those IGZAs are executed. And then the final reason is because as we continue with our HR investigations, those don't wait for budget time. None of these do. And so we're looking at those going, why do we continue to pay outside folks to do that when we could do it inside and probably have it done better? Not that there's a pending big HR issue or anything like that, but these are just the things that hit us. And so for us, it's like there's no time like the present. There would have been no time like 2 years ago, but it wasn't hitting us the way it has been lately. I hope that helps explain it. I think your point's a very well-made point, but that's the reason why now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Duncan?
So basically, we have not budgeted for the money, but we've already spent we're spending the money with contractors, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we budget the money. I mean, we have monies internally, that, for example, for the prosecution, but we don't have money to expand that prosecution. So we're saying, look, rather than paying more for a prosecutor, let's pay more in-house.
So
But
when
yeah,
would
okay, yeah.
When would they start?
Well, I mean, realistically, we're probably talking about beginning of November. I mean, by the time that we put it out there, and so I put down the cost there just for 2 months of the year. You're not talking about a lot this year, because by the time you go out and advertise and you get applicants in, you go through the interview process, you're probably talking about the beginning of November. The last
Okay.
2 months of the year.
Okay, I think the need is there, but when you say in-house, does that mean that this person is going to be located here in the building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
I'm going to ask the direct question to you, but you may have to have someone else answer it.
Okay.
Does Troy work more than 40 hours a week?
It's a good question, because what I would tell you is all employees are expected to work 40 hours a week. And so for non-exempt employees, which is what my classification is, that's the expectation. And so you can earn comp time if you work over 40, but that's not something that should reasonably be built up. And so
No, I understand, but I'm just asking if he's consistently already working more than 40 hours a week. I believe I would.
I'll let Troy answer, but then I'll tell you that I've gotten emails from him and work product at 9, 10, 11 at night. He's here in the evening hours trying to get stuff done.
And that's true. And so, but there are times when at the end of the week where there is more work that needs to be done when I have to leave, because that's not something that I, as an employee, should take advantage of, working more than 40 hours a week, because then I'm sort of forced to use it down the line. And so, there's been times where it's like, well, okay, I'm at my cap here, but I've hit my 40 hours.
I think you're misinterpreting the intent of the question. I'm going to interrupt the attorney and for clarification, if you don't mind. I think the intent of the question is to really show the need for the position, because I believe, having gotten some of those emails at 9, 10 o'clock, and even early hours in the morning,
I've got those too.
I believe you're working more than 40 hours a week and probably more than 50 hours a week. And easily, and I know other staff members are too. I know a lot of departments are short-staffed, but I just think it behooves us to not overuse people just because they want to get the work done and want to burn them out. And I think we're seeing that in public safety all over, in different departments. And so, I really support this position and have been hoping we can work towards this for a while, because I want to keep Troy, but I don't want to burn him out. And so that was the intent of the question, was not to embarrass you, Troy, but just to really say we do appreciate you, because I know you're working over 40 hours a week, and that's unsustainable for long term.
And I feel that, that support from the council. I feel that support from Scott and the staff here. And what I will tell you is I'm not gonna burn out. Whether you approve this or not, I'm not burning out. I'm here for the long haul. And so when that time comes, when I get close to that, it's unfortunately, but the answer is it's the work, it's the quality and the speed of the work product that suffers. And so that's sort of my commitment. And that's sort of how I was trying to answer the question is I'm not gonna go past my capacity to burn out because the value of my performance prior to getting burned out is what's important, and that's my priority too.
The challenge also, and I want to make sure I mention this, some of you, when you've been in my office, you may have noticed I've got a couple balls on my desk. One's glass and one's rubber. And that's just a reminder that a lot of the balls that we all have in the air, some of them are rubber balls, right? And you can drop them, you can bounce them off to somebody else, they can take them. You know, it might be a delay of something, but at the end of the day, that rubber ball can be handled. Some of them are glass balls, and when they get dropped, they shatter, and you can't get that back. Well, most of us as executives, we have the capacity to juggle 6 or 7 balls, and maybe we have 8 or 9, 10, right? And sometimes those balls get dropped. It's just the nature of the beast, and we work more hours to try to get more, to keep more of those balls in the air. The challenge with Troy, and this isn't specific to Troy, it's really a statement about the workload that's being thrown at him. While we might have 10 balls, he's got 20 balls thrown at him. And so what happens at the end of the week when he leaves after 50 plus hours is a lot of those balls just don't get done, right? And thank goodness a lot of them are rubber balls, but there's also a number of glass balls, and he's very good at determining which is which, thank goodness, or else we'd really be in a world of hurt. But what happens is, and you can see some of the things that we haven't done that we'd like to do, I put that in there as well. Because of that, some of those things that are really important, those balls don't even get off the shelf. We just have to leave them to the side because we just can't do them. And that's okay, right? We survived for years not doing some of the things we need to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best management practice. So that's why I'm proposing it. And if the council feels like it's appropriate to wait till the budget, we can certainly do that as well. But I just wanted to make sure that we have a responsibility, no matter what the timing is, when we feel the need and we really feel the pressure and there's something that makes sense from a timing standpoint, we're going to bring that to you.
Scott, could I mention one thing that's along the lines of what Councilman Hinton brought up? It's impossible to capture sometimes on paper, and a lot of folks that haven't worked in entities don't realize it. But Mayor Ortega used to talk about our neighbor to the north, and I want to point out the number of lawsuits that our neighbor to the north has lost. And I came from an entity, the county, at the sheriff's office that lost a lot of lawsuits because we didn't have a proactive culture and mindset in terms of our attorneys. So we actually added this type of a setup at the county because we were losing so many of those lawsuits. And I can tell you in Public Works, we now have Troy involved in every one of our projects that are involved. He joins our meetings once a week, and we overload him like you wouldn't believe because of the turnovers that we need. But he monitors every decision that we're making, everything that we do. So we have been, and I'm knocking on wood, we haven't been in the position that our neighbors from the north have been. And when I talk about those lawsuits, they can be in the millions of dollars. So if we don't have that proactive liability-wise actions, that can get you quicker than something what we're talking about today. So please keep that in mind, because in our world, in the public works world, the numbers that are put at the end of those lawsuits aren't thousands of dollars. They can be hundreds and millions. And we have to have that type of proactive mindset with our legal side of things.
Thank you. Councilmember Hinton?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the budget, but I think this is a perfect time for me, that it's going to take some time to hire this individual. I mean, our budget's, I think, next month, and I'm sure that we can kind of, calculate whatever needs to be calculated to cover for assistant, an attorney. So that's just me personally, just speaking on that. But I do agree with everything that's been said. I know Troy says he can't get burnout, and I appreciate that. But you're human, and we're all human, and burnout is a real possibility. So I appreciate everything that you do.
Councilmember Rick?
Want to share a conversation I had with Mr. Evans. In addition to being our city attorney, Mr. Johnson also supervises the court staff.
Oh.
Okay? For us as a layperson, you're thinking like, okay, what big deal. Most city attorneys do not supervise the staff. They are so busy writing opinions, going over contracts and stuff. They don't have time for personnel supervision. Mr. Johnson asked for that responsibility. This wasn't something that was dumped on him. He came to staff and asked for that responsibility. So I appreciate him taking on the extra workload.
Thank you. Councilmember Applegate?
Motion? We done?
Well, hang on, we haven't closed the discussion yet. I'll give you first crack at the motion, okay? All right, is there anybody, further discussion, any questions? Is there any questions from anyone in the audience? Okay, seeing none, Councilmember Applegate?
All right, I move to authorize the creation and hiring of an assistant city attorney position as proposed and included in the supplemental budget.
Councilmember Duncan?
I second.
Okay, is there any further discussion from council? Councilmember Applegate, did you want further discussion? Your light is still on. Okay, all right. Seeing none, please vote.
Six yes, one no. Councilmember Rick voting no. Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. All right, item C, review and approve creation of a recreation assistant position. Mr. Trainer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this, very similar to the last one, is just another one of these positions that we need to look at. I know this isn't new. I know I've approached the council and talked to the council about the need prior to this, and the council gave me some pretty strong feedback that this is an important area. This is yet another area. It's really interesting. As I was putting both of these commentaries together, both of these started in 2014. I mean, talk about a coincidence. Back in 2014, we had 3 programs: soccer, baseball, and flag football. It was started by one person. The city council at the time said, you know, we need to do something about recreation. It's important in our community. Let's do something. And so we created that, just sort of tiptoeing, dipping our big toes into the recreation water, so to speak. Well, you can see all these years later, those are the programs, and you can see on that agenda, on the commentary, excuse me, you can see the different programs that are provided now. There is a huge list of programs, and each one of those have expanded far beyond what those initial programs looked like. And so we're still doing that with that one person. That one person is the person who schedules, who buys equipment, who buys the shirts, who's out in the evenings at the games, who's out in the day on Saturdays or Sundays on different events, who makes sure that they manage the different sports officials that we have, who also during the day attends various leadership meetings, executive meetings, department meetings, works on the budget, all those sorts of things that, of course, you would expect from someone who does this. That's one person who does it. The problem is, I know, again, I've talked to the council about this before, the problem is that is a person that we don't have the ability, because these are programs. Recreation is a program that is a quality of life program for our community. So the balls that he has in the air aren't balls he can really set on the shelf. He can't say, you know what, I'm not going to go to the soccer stuff today. You know, I mean, we have people counting on him to be there. We have people counting on his officials, and so when officials call off, guess who gets to step in and do that? He does. And so, fortunately, we have someone who has a passion around recreation. Because I know, certainly, just speaking for myself, I would find it very hard. I would have probably never taken the job in the first place, because I'm not sure that I want to spend every evening away from my family, not every evening, sorry, but a lot of evenings away from my family, Saturdays away from family, and as well as working all the hours during the week. And so this is someone that I just worry that if we don't provide some support, we're going to end up losing. And you're not going to be able to replace that, because you're going to have a hard time finding someone to replace that workload and that passion, the drive, et cetera. And so we looked at this as well, and I know I'm repeating some of the stuff that we've talked about with the council, but we explored different options and felt at the end of the day, the only option that we explored, do we need to hire more officials? The problem is you can only have so many officials, there's only so many hours, and so that we need for games, and so it doesn't really help with all the other hours as well. And so we looked at, basically, let's bring in a recreation assistant, someone who can basically tag team with our current recreation coordinator to ensure that, hey, I've got this night covered, you've got that night covered. I've got this Saturday covered, you've got the next Saturday, whatever. However we need to do that. Now, I put in there the cost of this position, $76,000, because I need you to see what that cost of that position, that's fully burdened cost. But I also want to point out that, again, because of the quality person that we have here, and because of the work that he's done to really manage the personnel and the hours of officials and that sort of thing, it's not going to cost anything more. We're not asking for any new dollars for this at all. This will be paid for out of our current existing recreation budget. So he's been able to, again, because of his creativity, managing bodies, managing games, he's been able to make sure that we have the ability to pay for this position within our current budget, not asking for additional funds. But I still can't hire the position without getting additional support, getting approval from the council. So that's what I'm here for. I hope that has helped answer the big picture question. Again, I want to make sure that that cost was on there so you could see the actual cost for the position. But we're not asking for any new budget dollars. That's coming out of the existing recreation dollars.
Councilmember Hinton.
Yes, Scott, I like this. I know that I think it was a couple weeks ago, we had a presentation from a member of the Youth Council. I mean, this is one of the many things that we need to keep and maintain, because as I look at this list, there's a lot of youth activities that we need our youth can participate in and engage in. So if you're asking me, and you are asking me tonight, I think this is a good direction for us to maintain and get this individual some help.
Thank you, sir. You know, I probably should have also mentioned that there have been a number of programs we just have not been able to expand because we don't have the organizational capacity to do that. You know, you can't, as much as we'd love to, you know, add program X, Y, and Z and start signing people up, because we know we could, you still have to have someone who can deal with hiring the people to run that. And I'm not talking about just sports. I'm talking about maybe it's a photography program, maybe it's arts. We still have to have someone who can manage the people running those programs, and there's just only so much capacity that one person has to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate this, and believe it or not, there's something on here that I think you forgot, the father-daughter dance what they had right before COVID.
Oh, yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
and probably
Right.
would have had it, except
Right.
that, you know, COVID kind of killed it. So anyways, yeah, and that was vastly popular in the community, and people were really excited about that. I'm excited, because I know I kind of thrown out a challenge every year to come up with a non-sport related program under recreation, and remember, it's not, recreation just isn't sports.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited that maybe we can get some of those programs off the ground. So, Councilmember Estes?
I just want to say that it's been a long time coming, and we keep hearing about we need to expand the recreation program. And when you can do this without taking a hit on our budget, way to go. And Gordy, you're like an Iron Man.
Oh, he's hiding out back there. I
You
didn't see
know,
him. I saw Rosa. I didn't see
we'd
Gordy
like to
hiding out.
clone you.
Sorry, Gordy.
Yeah, we'd like to clone you, but you have brought us so far, and our citizens like this recreation program, and so this is our opportunity to fulfill our promises that we are backing this.
I probably should also mention, it also supports the council's strategic priorities to expand recreation programs.
Okay, is there any further questions from the council? Are there any questions from anyone in the audience, or would Gordy like to come up and say something? And Rick, looks like Rick, Scott? Wasn't sure.
I'm Rick Clements. In my time in the military, I spent 10 years in rec services. And I did just what Gordy's doing right now. And it was a job where that every morning I had to be in here at the staff meeting to let the colonel know what was going on. And yet every night I was at 11, 12 o'clock at night at the games, watching them go on, make sure that things are taken care of. The one thing that I had that he doesn't have is that I had staff, people out there taking care of all the ball fields, taking care of all the gymnasiums, all this stuff. He doesn't have that. You see him out there, he's mowing yards. He's mowing the fields. He's marking the fields. He's doing stuff like that. This is a job That is not a 9 to 5 job. This is not a job that you're gonna find someone who's gonna go up there because he can get a job. This is something that somebody loves to do. It's what they do. That's the reason why I did it. I love to do it. I loved it. I loved that job. And that way, it didn't bother me if I was up at 7 o'clock and then not going home until 11, 12 o'clock. Because it was something that I wanted to do. It's something that I love to do. That's exactly what this guy does here. That's what we need to find. And it's not gonna be, and you're not gonna find that by just positioning it. It's gotta be someone who loves recreation. And that's the best I can tell you.
You're hired, Rick.
I was gonna say, where's his application? That's right. Mr. Clements, where's your application? That's right. Gordy, did you want to say anything?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you for all your work. And I'll bet you he's working over 40 hours a week, too.
Oh, please don't tell me, Gordy. Yeah, that's definitely an easy yes. You know, one thing I also want to mention, when we look at these things, we also kind of do a deep dive on what the future of the organization is. This is something that as I look at Parks and Recreation in general, I look down the road, maybe it's 5 to 10 years, but at some point, we need a full-time Parks and Recreation, full-blown director that is overseeing both of those areas together. Both those areas, as you understand, they work so closely together. So that's a long-term plan, sometime down the road, and we'll grow into that at some point. But there is a need even now immediately, as we've been exploring different ways to operate internally, and I'm just gonna keep riding this ball analogy until it dies. But, you know, Sylvia and I have had conversations around her role with Parks and Recreation and clerk's office. And so as you can imagine, running the clerk's office and Parks and Recreation, she has had way too many balls in the air. And it's really hard. I mean, when that was, you know, 3 programs, right? You could wrap your arm around that baby. It's like your little baby's growing up, and you can wrap your arm around that baby, and you can kind of have control over everything and deal with it. But then that baby grows into a teenager and a young adult, and holy cow, you cannot do that anymore. And so now there's just way too many balls in the air. So as we've talked about it, Sylvia's going to be stepping away from Parks and Recreation oversight. We talked about it. Do you want to shift over to Parks and Recreation and let someone else handle clerks? Do you want to stay with clerks and let someone else handle Parks and Recreation? And clerks is where she grew up, so to speak, and there's a lot of love and passion for that as well. And so she decided, you know, I want to stick with the clerks. I really need to do that, and I really need to focus in that area. And so, you know, we're looking at really changing the operations of Parks and Recreation to have one person that oversees Parks and Recreation together and is focused entirely on that. I don't have the money to hire a body for that, so we'll be looking internally within our Parks and Recreation folks to elevate one of our leaders there into a position that provides oversight over both. And so this recreation assistant will definitely help out in that because it'll take a lot of this workload off that person as well, whoever that is. You know, if that's Jim Watson who says, you know, this is something of interest to me, I'm going to apply for that position when it's created internally. You know, we're going to need some help there. Gordy's going to continue to need help because we can't expand we're sort of at a standstill with our parks, with our recreation programs. If Gordy's the one who takes that on, again, continuing to oversee their regular areas, he's going to need to have the ability to have that support there as well. So I'm only sharing all this to give you kind of the big picture perspective. We're not at the level where we need a Parks and Rec director yet, but I can foresee the time, not too far down the road, where we're really going to have to decide, you know, do we really want to grow up, or are we comfortable staying at the level that we are? So I just want to make sure I shared that. Thank you.
Having sat in that meeting in 2014, and basically Mayor Ortega and Councilmember Geek and myself basically turned to staff and said, pick a sport and hire somebody. It's pretty much how it started. Yeah. And then we started the study to prove if we needed it, but we just kind of said, pick a sport. And so what was the gentleman's name that we hired, the first guy?
Ed,
yeah.
Ed Malone.
And he came
out of
in
Whitefield.
Yeah, started it from scratch, and I think it's amazing from 2014 to now to see how we've grown. And I believe he was part-time, and when he came on.
At first he was, yeah.
Yeah, and for the soccer program, he was part-time, then went to full-time, and then we've just grown and grown, and I just think that's pretty amazing. I think a lot of businesses would love to have this many programs developed in that many years and have such a full program. So my hat's off to everybody. So, Councilmember Applegate.
Are we ready for a motion?
Oh, I apologize.
Oh, we're ready for a motion? No, you're good, you're good.
Hang on, I haven't closed the discussion yet, so
Oh,
give me
that
just a
happened.
second.
Okay.
Okay, I got lights on all over, so I want to make sure what everybody wants. Okay, Councilmember Duncan, were you making a motion or more discussion?
No, I just wanted, I would like to make the motion, but I was just wanting to add, because I'm a boy mom, that we do a mother-son dance also.
Mother-son dance, Gordy. Or maybe that's Rosa.
Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Corey?
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the creation and hiring of a recreational assistant position proposed and to be included in the supplemental budget.
Councilmember Duncan?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Seven yes, motion carried.
Okay, at this time, since it's 7:40, almost 7:40, we're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute comfort break for people. So, sorry, Mr. John there. And we'll be back in 10 minutes, so that makes it 7:47. 7:47, we're going to call the meeting back to order. Hopefully, everybody's back in the room. We have an offer from Mr. Evans to postpone item E, history and discussion of impacts of dissolved metro districts and HOAs within the city. He's offering to postpone that to our next meeting so we can have a little further discussion of it since it is getting kind of late. Is everybody okay with bringing that back to the next meeting? So you can go home half an hour earlier? Okay, all right, Todd, you're postponed. I think we got a thumbs up here. All right, okay, so item E is now off the agenda. All righty, so that leaves us with item D, resolution number 22-047, a resolution amending the appropriation of fiscal year 2022 budgeted funds. Mr. Lewis, thank you for your patience.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. John Lewis, Finance Director.
Mr. Lewis, you're not on. There you go.
How about now? Try it again. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. John Lewis, Finance Director. You are very familiar with the supplemental process, but people listening in and some of our citizen audience may not. You adopt the budget in the fall, and you adopted our budget for this year on October 26, 2021. Of course, you approved the budget by year. So there were expenses that were budgeted in 2021 that we did not spend. Capital projects, for example, that span over a couple of years. So those things were in our first supplemental and our carry forward. And of course, in April 26th, May 24th, and June 14th, I came back to you and said there are additional items, either additional revenue or expenses that we were not anticipating, or like this evening, expenses that had been approved by you in certain agreements, but never brought before you officially as a budget supplemental. So city personnel have been made aware of additional necessary expenditures that need to be made this year. And also additional revenue that's been received with corresponding required expenditures. So I'm going to go through those in just a minute, but we are recommending to City Council to amend the budgets for 2022 for general, electric, water, and the ambulance fund for the additional items that I'm about to present. This supplementary budget request process is a standard process and a best practice for ensuring that only items appropriated by council are spent. And so we are therefore recommending that they be approved in Resolution 22047. So let's take a look at those. And Paul, if you would bring up the Excel spreadsheet there on our PowerPoint. You can see that we have miscellaneous revenue that's coming in for fiber that was cut with the underlying contractor. And so that expenditure is down below, and it will need to be made out of professional services, and they are paying for it. We also have some miscellaneous revenues, including some for overflow parking and over at the property that is leased by BNSF, and so that expenditure is below, but we will be repaid. We also have lease proceeds that are going to be paid back with the guaranteed cost savings, and that is part of the Verigy project, the energy savings project, that most of which is over on the electric department, which I'll get to, but you'll see that down below. So, and we also have an expenditure item there of $330,000 for engineering improvements, and that's the Link Road improvements. There's going to be a grant for approximately $4 million that's anticipated to be received in 24 and 25, but the engineering improvements that we need to spend are part of our match. If we could go to the next slide, please, Paul. Thank you. We've had quite a bit of vehicle maintenance in the police department, so we need to increase that line item. We also have ordered some new vehicles for PD, so that is listed there. Some fentanyl test kits for patrol equipment. We have to replace some damaged fire hoses for $23,782. You had approved before, and it was in a commentary but not officially approved as a budget, the 93,000 or so that was approved for the landscaping contract, and it was going to be paid out of both streets and parks portion of the salary savings. So we are now officially putting that in the supplemental. We also have building improvements of $558,000 that are being paid for by the lease, and then the lease is going to be paid by the energy cost savings, and that was part of that lease proceeds that we showed you up above on the previous slide. There's an additional amount that we need for trash removal over on the recycling area that Neighborhood Services takes track of, and the rent for the BNSF that we are getting, BNSF property that we are getting money from Fura and Peaks and Pines. So the total expenditures for the general fund is $1,236,648. Portion of that is coming out of year-end salary savings, and the decrease in the unrestricted, unassigned reserves in the general fund would be $571,202. Before I move on to water and electric, are there any questions on the items that I've detailed in the general fund?
I have a comment real quick.
Yes.
The amount, and this was a miscommunication on my part, on the recreation salaries, we've included $12,700 for recreation salaries. There won't be any because, again, that's from our existing, so I just want to make sure to clarify that. And that was because of the way the commentary was originally written, and I talked to finance about it, so they included it. But then Gordy did his magic, and we are where we are.
What a magician.
No, he left.
He left, okay. I did calculate that amount, so as amended, that portion to come out of year-end salary savings, would that be $104,450? And the decrease in unrestricted reserves would be $558,502.
Councilmember Rick?
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Are our reserves still in a healthy state? I
Yes.
think last time we talked was in the 20% range.
Yes, it's above the 20% range. And I'll be giving you an update with the budget workshop that we have on the 22nd.
Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay, hearing no other questions right now on the general fund, let's move to the water fund. And the next slide, please, Paul. Water fund is just one item. It's the water portion of the additional cost of the assistant attorney. So that's $1,900. In the electric fund, we have two large items. One is the grant revenue from DOLA for $1,350,000. And the other is the remaining lease proceeds that we're getting from Bank of America for the solar array to be paid out of the guaranteed energy cost savings. And that's $2,341,169. So the expenditures in the electric fund include the 1,900 salaries that electric's portion of the additional assistant attorney cost for 2022. And then the Bank of America lease payment that comes up in November. And then the capital improvements for the solar array and the other equipment that Verigy is providing for energy savings. And last but not least, we have an item for the fleet alignment machine that will handle bigger trucks and equipment for $45,500. And it's coming out of electric now because fleet is still in the electric fund. For 23 and 24, we are moving it to the general fund. And if we could go to the final slide, please, Paul. The ambulance fund, the cost of service and rate analysis that assisted us with obtaining a very large Medicaid reimbursement, which we think will be somewhere around $700,000 next year. That cost was $40,000, and we need to pay for that. And that is all of the items. So with that, I would like to ask City Council to approve the expenditures of the general fund, electric, water fund, and ambulance. And as amended, we will take the recreation salaries out of salary savings in recreation, rather than from reserves.
I do have a question.
Sure.
On the alignment machine, is that going to kind of offset if those alignments have been going out to service?
Yes.
That we can bring them in-house now?
Yes.
So do we have any idea what that expense is that we're doing now for it going out of house? Okay. All right. Okay. And then, Dan, when are they going to break ground on the solar array?
They are ordering materials, and there is supply chain issues, so we do not have a firm delivery date on the materials, so that we don't have a date at this point in time.
Okay, so if we don't get started pretty soon on that, it's going to be next year because the ground's going to
It'll
freeze?
be, yeah, in fact, the transformer itself is a minimum of 1 year delivery time. So we do not expect the solar array to be operational for at least 12 months, but maybe as long as 18 months before it would be operational.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not too.
Thought we were on a little faster track than that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the supply chain issues are
Right,
are
are real.
real.
Same on the development side. When we're
Yeah.
looking for transformers, it's the same delivery time. They can't get them as well.
Okay. Are there any questions from council? Councilmember Rick?
I'm ready to make a motion unless someone else has questions.
Okay, well, hang on till I close the discussion.
Sure.
Okay, are there any further questions from council? Are there any questions from anyone in the audience? Okay. Councilmember Rick?
Move to approve Resolution 22-047, a resolution amending the appropriation of fiscal year 2022 budgeted funds.
Councilmember Duncan?
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the floor for resolution number 22-047. Is there any further discussion from council? Okay, seeing none, please vote.
Seven yes, motion carried.
Thank you,
All right,
council.
Thank you very much. Okay, that takes us on to item 10, correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports. Mr. Trainer?
Thank you. I have two quick items. Next Tuesday, a week from tonight, 9/20, is the community night out in the park. So hopefully we'll see some of you there. It's always a fun event. And then on the 22nd, John mentioned it already, but just a reminder, we do have our budget workshop. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Trainer? Mr. Evans? Okay, Troy?
The only thing I had was to request an additional executive session. Something came up last minute, so there's one on the agenda, but I'd like to request a second for the same purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. But that is all that I had.
I don't know if I should say thank you. Okay. PD?
Nothing, Mayor.
Dan?
I do have some positive news with regard to the PFAS mitigation facility at Aga Park that the Air Force is building for us. We have now connected all 4 of our wells to that facility, and we are on the threshold of being able to test that for commercial operation, which is excellent news because the Fountain Valley Authority treatment plant is going to go down for a 6-month maintenance period starting the 10th of October. But if all goes well with the mitigation facility at Aga Park, we should have that online, producing water. Plus, the Fountain Valley Authority has an agreement with Springs Utilities to provide water to all of the members of the Fountain Valley Authority while the plant is down for maintenance. But the really good news is it looks like there is light at the end of the tunnel on the PFAS mitigation facility, and for the first time in probably a couple years, it's not the train coming the other way.
All right, we can have a big ribbon cutting or something, or?
In fact, Taylor Murphy asked me about that today, and I told him I would run that up the flagpole, and and we would go from there. So it
All
sounds
right.
like that's something that you're interested in doing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Great to have that project be finished. Thank you.
Yeah.
Get our
thank
park
you.
put back together. John?
Nothing more, thank you.
Okay. Chief Joyce?
No, ma'am, thank you. I have nothing to say.
All right, thank you. Mike? IT?
Nothing this evening, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Sylvia? Okay. And start down on my left here. Councilmember Rick?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Two items. First off, for Mr. Trainer, you said a couple meetings ago that the city staff gets together and does Creek Week. If you could add me to the list and just have whoever's in charge reach out to me, I would love to work with the staff during Creek Week. Second, we get emails from primarily the utility department when there's a power outage or when there's a water outage. They're very good at notifying us. Today, we had a shelter in place, and there was no notification. I had to find out on social media. If we could have somebody from PD reach out to the city council whenever we're having a shelter in place, I think that would be appropriate.
The county puts it out, so you know. Oh, the county. Gotcha.
That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Corey?
Community night at the park, 4 to 7 next Tuesday, right, correct? And John Metcalf Park, hope to see everyone there, so.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
always a fun night.
Yeah, exactly.
Lexi's been working super hard to get a lot of nonprofits out there this year. Councilmember Hinton?
Just want to add that we had a great time at the parade with lots of folks were out. It was good to see our citizens, and Chief, I appreciate the ride. It was a smooth ride. To tell your driver he did an awesome job, and it was just good to see the community. And actually, I was able to interact with a lot of people that were coming outside of the community and coming and spending some time in Fountain. So it's a great thing that we do, and I think it's something that we should continue and make it even bigger next time.
I think they will. Next year will be 53. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, just more candy, right? More candy to throw, man.
For
and-
sure, candy. We need candy.
Oh, my gosh, you guys have good arms.
Yeah.
They would like throw it right to the kid, like, phew. I was like so impressed. And so I was glad I wasn't throwing the candy. So thank you. Councilmember Estes.
I have nothing this evening.
Councilmember Applegate.
Nothing this evening.
Councilmember Duncan.
I just want to have a few comments about our meeting with D8 School Board. It was an honor to meet with the board and members, and we're looking forward to what the future holds. I just want us to continue to be a bridge for future generations here in our city. The Youth Council is continuing to take applications. We had a great time riding together on our float in the parade. You can go on the city website for any applications and information, and always you can contact me directly. We have September the 20th, 2022 is National Voter Registration Day. So if you've changed your name, your address, to please go in and get that information corrected. We have a major election coming up, and we need everyone to vote. And I don't know if anyone has heard, but I found something about fentanyl being used as a rainbow drug. So I don't know, it comes in all these different colors. 2 kids in my church has recently passed away due to this fentanyl crisis that we're having. So I just want everyone to be vigilant and communicate with your children, check their rooms and see what's going on with them. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Duncan and I attended the UCCS Economic Forum and a lot of information about what's going on in the area, and so that was very informative. I wanted to give a shout out to Explorers for having a Chick-fil-A fundraiser last week. Thanks for all the hard work that went into that. Hopefully they raised some money for Special Olympics. We had, PPACG had a strategic planning session and began planning for the legislative. And I'll tell you, if you missed the Bruckner's 90th anniversary, you didn't get a hat. Yeah, they even had a pink one. So Bruckner is a great company to have in town, 90 years in business. Congratulations to them. And that's a huge, beautiful facility over there. And they had, and I was glad to see some of our fleet people were able to come over since we do business with them. And I had a good lunch with them, and they shopped local. We had Bird Dog Barbecue, and I forced myself to eat some of that on behalf of the city. So, you know, it was tough, but, you know, I took one for the team, you know, because I had something I could eat. All right, so busy, everybody's busy out there doing lots of things, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for mentioning that, Deetra, that all the D8 people and all the council members that came to that meeting. Lexi made this room look beautiful. I walked in, I wasn't even sure I was in City Hall with the flowers and the tablecloths and everything. She did a very nice job, and it's just nice to put names and faces together with everybody. So to work on things that are of importance to the whole city. So that takes us to item 11. Sylvia, announcement of an executive sessions.
Thank you. City Council, I'd like to request an executive session pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024 for the purpose of review, approval, and amendment of executive session minutes, and two separate items pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024B for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from the city clerk. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve that? Councilmember Estes?
I move to go into executive session.
Councilmember Duncan?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for executive session. Please vote.
I apologize, City Council. Paul, I don't have a voting option on. Madam Mayor, for the sake of time, we can do a roll call vote.
Yes, please do
if you'd
a
like.
roll call vote, yes.
Mayor Thompson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Estes, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Hinton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Corey, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Rick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Applegate, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
7 yes, motion carried.
All right, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. And we'll take a 5-minute break while we reset for executive session.